What's up, this is Jake with Hike 734, hiking with my wife Kristen on the Paintbrush Canyon and Cascade Canyon big old loop in Grand Teton National Park. And this one, while you can start out in a couple of different places, we started at the String Lake Trailhead and then worked our way up through Paintbrush Canyon and looped all the way down through Cascade Canyon. And you can do this loop either way. I think is going to be great. We really like the way that we did it. And so here we go. So we started out at String Lake, and it's a little confusing, but basically you just go over to the outlet of String Lake, cross the little bridge there, and then work your way along the west shore of the lake through the big old avalanche chutes, and just start working your way gradually up. And you just kind of travel through avalanche chutes with views of String Lake and up to Rock Chuck Peak and Mount St. John. And then you just kind of alternate between open areas and some wooded areas, and then open areas with some aspens. And then you go back into the woods, and you just continue to climb up, and you pass the Lee Lake little shortcut trail there, and just keep going right up. And it just climbs not really aggressively. It's just a moderate incline until you round into the lovely Paintbrush Canyon. And the forest in there is super fantastic. It's just nice open spruce fir, and it's just a really lovely walk, and it levels out in that area. And just as you continue to climb up there, you start to get some cool little pocket views of Mount Moran, and just kind of looking around at some of the other summits in there. And eventually it starts to open up more, and you get alongside of this really pretty creek that has no name. And so you just go up and it cascades, and the flowers were beautiful, and just lots of cool birds and all that kind of stuff. Through this section, all of a sudden out of nowhere, about 20 feet in front of me, I look up and there's a black bear coming down the trail, and he quickly got off the trail, which was awesome. And I got a little bit of footage of him walking away, which is perfect. And then we just continued up, and it just opens up more and more. The views just keep getting up in these amazing boulder fields, and I'm a pika lover, and there are pikas everywhere. In fact, there are pikas all throughout this trip, which is super great. And yeah, just lots of just cool views. You start to see the southern end of Jackson Lake, and you get to see like Hermitage Point and Donahoe Point. And so it's just really cool to get kind of a sense of your place here. And just looking up towards, you really can't see Paintbrush Divide yet, but anyways, you finally get up. There's just a fork in the trail, and so if you take a left, that is the shorter route, but you definitely want to take a right, because that heads up to the lovely Holly Lake. And just after a little tiny bit of climbing, you come to this really quaint little pond before you get up to Holly Lake. So then you climb a little bit more, and then finally you get up to Holly Lake. And Holly Lake is a destination of itself. It's just this really cool lake tucked beneath a bunch of cliffs, and it's just got fish jumping, and there's pikas running all around the boulders, and it's just really a cool lake. And so we sat there and had a snack before I think it was like another 1,500 vertical feet we had to climb. And right from Holly Lake, it is steep. It is a steep little slog until you rejoin up with that trail. It was the previous fork, and man, the flowers in this section, the little stream, super pretty. And just all the way here up all the way to the pass is just so beautiful. You're just getting to see so many. Just the whole area is really cool. It's just a great alpine section, just with the trees and the beautiful rocks and just all these sections. It's so fantastic. And eventually you start to get really high, and the footing gets a little bit sketchy as you're coming up through the granite boulders, as you're doing the switch back up to actual Paintbrush Divide. As you're looking at Wood Ring Peak over there, and just really cool. And if you feel like you're having to climb in that section, that just means you missed a switchback. So try and stay on the switchbacks. It helps reduce erosion and confusion for other people. And finally you get up right up to the Paintbrush Divide, and it's just lovely to looking back where you came from, and then out over just west of the Tetons, It's just really awesome. And from there, you just traverse across and go to the actual divide point. And then there's a little knob that we went out on to have a bite to eat, and we just looked around, and it's just super beautiful, all the way from Moran to Woodring, all the way over to Grand Teton. So just really pretty. And while we're up there, there's a little lake you can see only from that point called Grizzly Bear Lake, and I saw a few moose hanging out over there. And after hanging out there, getting some food, we decided to start our long descent down, and so we just worked our way down and just busted out into the big drainage that is Cascade Canyon. And this is the North Fork of the Cascade Canyon. And from here, we just started descending, and it was just another great valley. And you start off just in tons and tons of these big boulder fields. And once again, lots of pikas. We saw some marmots, and we saw some golden-mantled squirrels, and just tons of flowers. The flowers were better on the west side of this little traverse over here. And so that was really, really pretty. You get to see a great shot of Grand Teton and Owen and some of those other magnificent summits. And as we got lower, you could really see just the great U-shaped, which is the glacial carved valley there. It's just awesome. And Lake Solitude is just perched there. And there's also another really amazingly green lake called Mica Lake. And that lake is just really cool. And those lakes are that color because of a lot of glacial flour, which is ground up rocks that are suspended in there. And anyways, we continued to work our way down there. And somebody had told us, who had camped down in this drainage, that they had some moose running around camp. And so while we were up there, I took out my binoculars and looked and saw 3 bulls just wandering through some of the alders and willows and those sorts of good food for moose. And anyways, so we did our last couple switchbacks and the long traverse over to Lake Solitude, and that is definitely a really pretty lake. There's there's this really cool peninsula just that kind of perches right out there, and it's just a really beautiful lake. And then from there, we started working our way down through the just tons of little feeder streams, and just the view. I felt like I couldn't take enough pictures or video of Grand Teton, and this is one of the reasons why I loved walking out this canyon, because you just get to keep looking at it, and just a bunch of willows, and it alternated between some forests and then just these big boulders, and then more forests, and so as you got lower, you got closer to the creek itself, and then you crossed over it, and just, yeah, really lush and pretty in there. And in this section, you enter in the trees for the most part, and it's a nice forest walk for sure. And you're just and you end up crossing over the creek again, and eventually you'll just come over to what's called the Forks of Cascade Canyon. And since you've been on the North Fork, you come across the South Fork. And then you just follow through more trees down Cascade Creek, and it does that. It cascades. And it's not super close initially, and there's not a lot of views initially, but as you get further down the canyon, things really start opening up, and you start to get closer to the creek. And there's even a couple sections where where the creek slows down, and then it speeds up again. And yeah, you just get some really cool views of the Grand Teton, and you can see there's a canyon called Valhalla Canyon, which has a nice waterfall coming out of it. And anyways, just like earlier, it has a really nice open forest, and then it begins to open up into these big boulder fields again, and then then another open forest, and then it gets wide open in the boulder fields. And as you're going down, you just get just great expansive views. A little bit hard to see looking back because of the sun, but overall, really, really pretty. And as you get further down the canyon, it starts to kind of narrow down a little bit, and then you get right along the creek for some time, and then eventually you get really close to the creek as the canyon gets all nice and small, and then you're walking right along where it's kind of cascading, and then the creek wanders off to the right, and the trail wanders off to the left. And you come to a junction, and the right goes to like Inspiration Point and a lot of the Jenny Lake other trails. And then we took the horse trail that goes up and over, which is the shorter direction to go to String Lake. And that's just a steep, relatively uninteresting trail that kind of switchbacks down over to the Jenny Lake Loop Trail. And that's just lovely because Jenny Lake is very, very beautiful. And you cross over a couple of feeder streams that go into the lake, and then you get some really beautiful vistas of the lake. And we're coming through here when it's in the evening, so we pretty much have it to ourselves, which is pretty rare. And then as we travel further along, some open hillsides, and then just great expanses of the lake as we wrap around. And pretty soon we're going to go ahead and join up with the old String Lake Trail, and yeah, we'll be back to our car. So anyways, 19-mile day, really long day, lots of cool stuff to see. Everything from big views to lots of animals and flowers, and yeah, it's just awesome. But anyways, this is Jake with Hike 734, hiking with Kristen to Paintbrush Canyon and Cascade Canyon Loop in Grand Teton National Park. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe on YouTube and head on over to hike734.com for more goodness.